Hello there, yarn lovers, it's Gary and I'm coming to you from my happy place, the Yarn Corner, here on the west coast of Canada. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Today it is Saturday, June the 15th, 2024. How are you all doing? I hope you're well and staying safe. If you're happening across this channel for the very first time, I've set this channel up to talk about all of my yarny adventures. That's in knitting, crocheting, I dabble a little bit in yarn dyeing, and I talk about my acquisitions, where I purchase my yarn from, and tools of my craft. So if that is of interest, please stick around. And for those returning, I want to say welcome back. Thank you so much for the comments in the last video where I was posing a question on what to name an amigurumi. I had just started it. I think I was on row 14, and it was for my Pride kitty. It being June here and it's Pride month, I wanted to create something, and I was crocheting up a Pride kitty in rainbow colors. So I got some really good feedback. Thank you so much. And as always, for watching the video and supporting the channel, I want to say a huge thank you. Now, I have, before I get going and talking about my Q&A session here, I am answering some questions from my community tab. I do want to flag one thing. Now, Knit Picks and We Crochet, they're sister companies. I'll link their affiliate links down below, where they're having a sale, and it's on until tomorrow, which is Sunday, June the 16th, 2024. They are having a 25% off if you use the coupons that are listed down below. If you're wanting to purchase, it's for the whole site, but if you're wanting to purchase and you've been saving up for that thing, that special, maybe it's a tool, or it could be some yarn that you want to buy a lot of to make a sweater, then the 25% off is it's a great thing. So I wanted to flag that, and if you use the link down below, it is an affiliate link. I just wanted to point that out at no extra expense to you, but it does help the channel and I get a commission from it. So a little bit of money comes back to me. So I wanted to flag that. Now on to the questions, and I have them here. I will also link the video to the first round of questions that I answered. I had around 20 of them. It took me about 20 minutes, and I have roughly around the same amount of questions this time. So I'll link the first session down below. It was in May, and now here we are in June. Wow, how the time flies. Okay, so let's get started. The first one I have here is, what other crafts do I like doing if I'm not including the yarn crafts or other crafts that I have done? So I'm not sure whether everyone is familiar with along my early journey from just straight out of high school. I did feature it once, maybe 3 years ago in the channel, but because there are so many new faces, I will tell the story again. And I'm really delighted to show some things from this journey as well, from my past, that I have put around me here. So when I studied at university after high school, I knew I wanted to get involved with something that was creative. I had a lot of artists in the family, and I was taken by all the inspiration that was around me to embark on a career in painting. Now that's the fine art painting on canvas, on wood, on objects, and then hanging it up. So I did exhibit for a little while after that. I'm going to say from 1992 to 1996, so 4 or 5 years there, I was an exhibiting painter. So yeah, I've got some of the last few works that I've done. Now I'm really sorry, in 1990, whatever it was that these were done, I didn't have a digital camera. I don't think many people did have digital cameras back then. They kind of came in later 1990s and early 2000s. So I was very analog. I had a roll of film in my camera, and so I only have these pictures here from a camera. And I was into portraiture. I was doing collage, mixed media at the time, and these were very heavily influenced by Grecian and Roman statues. So the whole idea behind it was how it's all to do with the perfect model stereotype, as well as how beneath the surface of these portraits there are cracks and there are kind of like bits and pieces that are worn down. So it talks about beauty, and it talks about like the industrial era that I was feeling at the time. So yeah, we have other portraits here. I'm sorry you can't see them. There's lots of glare. That one's probably too dark to show on camera. There's another portrait there. There's another portrait here. A few more. There's one up there, one down there, and last two I'll show. Oh, I really like this one here. And that one here. So yeah, that's what I was as a young person, moving in the world and learning as much as I could with the technique of painting and exhibiting and talking a whole different language basically in the visual arts, which carries through, I guess, till today, because I always have to have my hands busy doing stuff. 10 years after that exhibiting had sort of finished up and wrapped, I was moving then into graphic design, because struggling to sell crafts and artwork in exhibiting situation was quite a challenge. So I always had to subsidize that effort with a side job. And I thought, well, I need to marry it somehow in more of my mainstream life. So I became a graphic designer. So in amongst graphic design, I did keep my avenues open to do other outside commission stuff that was more heavily involved with, you know, illustration and getting that technique still in my daily routine, my 9-to-5 kind of job. And I picked up a couple of children's books. Now, these are just rough illustrations that I still have in my possession, and this is a story about a bear. And so here he is eating some honey. Same bear. And here he is playing with some rabbits. What else can I show you? I don't want to sort of like go too long. Here's a fox. Now, all of these were scanned into the computer. This was illustration that I did, illustration to a book I did maybe in 2017. And I then imported them into my computer and colored them. So here's a few more of those sketches. So these are rabbits dreaming up of different things that they like doing, eating lettuce, chasing butterflies. One more. Let's see. What else can I show you here? Oh, here's a cute one. This one's of an owl circling up overhead on a park. Yeah, so that's what I did with the next little while when I was graphic designer. I still am a graphic designer. I veered off a little bit in my hobby time, and I started doing pottery in 2017. Same kind of time frame as that particular book illustration. And I used the community services of a potter's studio where there was a technician and a manager at the community center that would fire all of our works. I did some classes there as well in Vancouver, and I spent 5 years being a volunteer and making things, many different things, but mostly they were functional items such that you would see in the kitchen, so kitchen bowls or plates, and sometimes in the bathroom, hand soap holders or jars with corks in them. And later down the way, this was probably a piece that I did I'm going to say, my 5th year of putting. So it's a bowl basically thrown on the wheel. And I carved out this, I call it the Tim Burton curl, where it's a yarn bowl and you have your yarn in here and you can pull your yarn thread through the curl, and it keeps it all contained. So if the ball's rolling around, it's not going to move. But I really like the wide base of this one because I could use it in a cake as well. Set the cake here, even though a cake doesn't really roll around. But larger balls as well, like if I had bigger blanket yarn. I don't really use blanket yarn, but maybe a 5 bulky would fit in here nicely. So yeah, I was doing stuff like this. If I have any more photos as I talk to you, I'll just put them up here of some pottery that I had done. So every 2 years, being at the community center, I would go and join in a craft fair and sell the pottery that I had done at the community center. There was a question as well that was in amongst the ones that were listed in the community tab, whether I would go back and ever start pottery again. And the answer is yes. It is a passion that I love doing, but with it comes a lot of bits and pieces that I need for it to work. And at the moment where we don't have a facility here at home, I don't have a throwing wheel, I don't have a kiln, there's a lot of things that are needed to make it happen. But I have since found out, since moving here in the valley, that there is a Potters Guild, and it's quite a well-known one on Vancouver Island, and I have joined it. I actually know that there is a community spot that I can use on a 1 day a week basis, but it's while I'm working at my regular day job, so I can't go across and utilize it. Not at this point in my life, but hopefully sometime when I'm slowing down to retirement and my work situation might not be full-time, maybe I might go part-time, I can then include that back into my cycle of crafting and getting back into pottery. So I am hopeful that that will happen. And certainly when I do retire, I'm going to be picking it up for sure. Okay, what do I like doing outside of crafting? That's a great question. I do love going on hikes, taking Pixel, my dog, for a walk. Chad and I love traveling. Chad's my husband. We do like to see and explore other cultures as well as places that are close to home here that we haven't seen before. That really gets us excited. And on those trips and on those little outings that we have, we do love trying new foods. So I'm going to say travel and food go hand in hand, but also food at home when we're trying a new recipe that involve other ingredients that we've never heard of before. We like that as well. We also like watching movies. So I'm going to say that those are some of the things that I really enjoy outside of working on my crafts. Okay, so here's an interesting one. What made me move to Canada? Because I'm originally from Australia, as you can tell by the accent. I lived in Australia until I was 29, and they have something, you might have heard of it if you are within the Commonwealth countries. It's called a traveling work visa. Now, you have to apply for it. If you're under 30, you are eligible to apply for it. And you hear back pretty quickly in Australia anyway on whether or not you can get a stamp in your passport to work in another Commonwealth country. So I applied to the Canadian consulate, I think, and when I was living in Australia, to get the stamp to work for a full year in Canada before I turned 30. I only had a few months. But as long as you are 29 when you apply, it doesn't matter if the year, if you cross over to 30 and you've been approved. So I got my 1 year work visa, traveling work visa for Canada. took my portfolio. At the time, I was that graphic designer that I was talking to you about, and was fresh out of school because I went back to school again. And then went around. Vancouver was my first stop, and went around to see potential workplaces and met with different people. And I found out within the first, I'm going to say 10 days of being in Vancouver, that there was an interest there. So to cut a long story short, because I was traveling around, I ended up back in Vancouver and I took the job, and I was living for the year on the work visa, and then I extended it. And then I loved it so much here that I went through the process of becoming a landed immigrant and then a full-fledged Canadian citizen. So that all happened in 2007. I was sworn in, and the ceremony happened that year, and I have been here ever since. So there was a chance that I was going to go back home for a little bit there, but it didn't work out. I ended up staying in Canada. So have I always lived in Vancouver since I arrived in Canada? Yes, up until the point of when I moved just 3 years ago, I was only living in Vancouver, and then I moved. I'm now out of Vancouver, the city, and I'm living on Vancouver Island. Okay, I think that answers that. What are some of the frustrations in my yarn craft? Okay, going back to yarn crafts, I'm going to flip around here because I haven't put them in a very good order, but some of the frustrations I have with my yarn crafts are definitely when I am, all of my yarn gets tangled. Like if I'm working on with multiple colors, I haven't set myself up to be organized enough to put all the yarn in specific things that I can move the things around. Generally, I throw everything in a bag, and I want to take the project somewhere remote or work here on it for a bit, work there on it for a bit. So all the yarn gets tangled. And that really frustrates me because I want to get going on working on the project, but I spend half the time figuring out what's going on with all the yarn to untangle it. So that would be one of my frustrations. I have a note here as well as, okay, when I start a project, I don't know whether all of you feel the same way, is when it's so small to hold in your hands, like you only have like one row or a magic circle or whatever, crochet or knitting, and you're finding that all of your like things twist super easy and you can't get your fingers in. That kind of frustrates me because it's very finicky. So I'm going to say starting a project when it's very fidgety really kind of like frustrates me a little bit. But if I keep at it and after 2 hours I've got enough texture there, or enough fabric I should say, to hold it and feel a little bit more secure with it, so yeah, then I'm off to the races. What are the benefits from crafting, which is a good one? So my benefits for crafting is I like keeping my hands busy. I think with my mind concentrating on what I'm doing, or feeling that I'm able to like focus remote, it's almost like autopilot with some stitches, but sometimes I need to focus if I need to stitch count, or if I need a certain step-by-step thing to happen to get a special combination of stitches worked up to complete a certain area. I'm going to say definitely it will break any cycle that I am looping around in my head that might be stressing me out or creating some type of energy that I'm not happy with or thinking about, sort of thing. So it sort of like calms me down. So I think stress relief is one thing that it definitely helps me with. The rewards. Okay, the crafting gives me such reward, especially when I am gifting a certain item to someone, to see the light of joy that comes over them when they're unwrapping it, or they're trying it on, or they're able to use it. I get such joy out of that. So it's definitely rewarding, and creating beautiful things. Like when you're so proud of something, when you've achieved a certain challenge, that is also the amazing part of creating and crafting. Okay. Okay, and the next bit that I have here, I'm just reading, is all about travel. And I have a question here that says, have I been to Europe? If so, have I visited yarn shops there? I have traveled to Europe. I don't know whether you also know the story that my parents, one is from Europe and one is from Asia. So they both traveled with their families, and they came and arrived in Australia, and that's where us kids were born. So a lot of the extended family that still remained in those various places were drawing us back every so often to visit family. So my great-grandparents were still alive when I was really young, so we went to Europe to visit them. There were our family still in Asia, where I go back and visit them. I haven't gone in a very long time. I'm going to say the last time I was there was 2016. So we're coming up to almost 10 years. No, it was a little later than that. Might have been 2017 or 18. So I went to visit them in Asia. And the last time I was in Europe to visit my family was, I'm going to guess, 2014, about 10 years ago, roughly around the same time. So yes, I have been there, but yarn for me has only been something that I've been involved with for the last 6 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. So pottery was and still is a passion of mine, but I'm not practicing it anymore. That came first, and once I started creating yarn bowls and then the pandemic hit, I was then interested in trying out these yarn bowls and wanting to start knitting. So that's when that all happened, and I haven't looked back because I do love knitting and crocheting. Okay, so where would I like to go next if I was to pick a destination to travel? Oh, there's so many places in that one. I do love going to visit my family in both places, but if I had to choose a new place that I haven't been to before that I would like to go to, I think I'd like to go to Vietnam. There's Halong Bay, which is, I think it's up in the north part, where they have a sea where all of these rock formations come out, and I'm not sure whether it's limestone, but they have this emerald green sea and these amazing cliff rocks that sort of are, they're straight up and down from the water, from the seabed, like the sea surface, and they go up for hundreds of feet. And I think that would be a beautiful place to sail around in like a boat, and just go and stop off in these little coves and see the beaches and stuff, and eat the Vietnamese food, because I do like Vietnamese food. Yeah. Okay, now we're going back to the yarn again. Sorry about this, it's all over the place. How do I choose yarn to work together in a project? I was going to bring a whole box of stuff down that I forgot. It's in the cupboard here for this question. But what I like to do when I'm playing with yarn, I call it my playtime with yarn, is I have lots of scraps, like projects that don't use up a full hank, and I love that box so much. It's where I abandon everything and know that there's no preciousness to a freshly skein, a fresh hank or a full skein. So I kind of go at it with trying different things, holding different things together. And I suggest, if you're feeling a little precious about some type of yarn that you want to use, but you want to still play with your yarn, then to go to your scraps as well and just challenge yourself to make a project holding two of them together, or trying out different color combinations that you may not necessarily try together in a pattern that you're kind of like fully conscious and aware of what you're doing. So it becomes an abandonment of all of the rules. So it's very liberating, and it teaches you a little bit about how to relax when you get to the full skeins and the brand new skeins that you might have in your collection, and feeling that it's just yarn. So go at it if you feel like you need to make something with it that's not, you're not standoffish or facing any issues with wanting to be precious with it. So another technique that I like doing, if I know that I love the yarn so much that I want to try it and I'm not sure what project, I will separate it out into two cakes, or hank up a small 25 gram away from the main one. So there'll be 75 grams, normally it hanks around 100 grams. And I'll take off around 25, and I will think, well, you know what? I've got 25 to do whatever I want with, and that 75 is remaining there. It's going to stay there, and I'm just going to play around with it and see what I want to do with it, whether I want to add something else to separate it in stripes, or if I wanted to maybe create window around it with a solid color, or frame it in a certain way. Then I think that's a great technique to sort of massage that, that whole, I don't know what to do with this yarn, I need the perfect project, but it hasn't come up yet. So yeah, I would say use the yarn because it's there, and if you wait too long, you'll never get the chance to use it. Okay, do I feel that constructed yarn works best for a certain project, e.g. a blow-on yarn, roving yarn, applied yarn? I don't know, maybe. I think if you wanted something to be a certain way in your wardrobe, or say in your vision, and you had it in your heart to make something very light and feathery and sort of like sit like it wasn't there, but it created this nice warmth for you, or something fuzzy, then I think there are certain yarns that you would choose over the other yarns. So for instance, if I was going to describe a piece that I really wanted in my mind to create, and it was going to be a nice flowy and maybe light piece that was going to offer me some warmth, then maybe a blow-on yarn would be good in a mesh, because it might have some fuzz over it, but it'll be super, super light. So maybe it wouldn't drape, but it would sort of be a fluffy cloud and hold a lot of warmth. Then that would be the way that I would go. If I wanted something a little heavier, dense, offered up something that sort of hung heavier and over my body, then maybe a roving would be better, because rovings generally tend to be slightly denser fabric that it makes. Another great one is I want it to be shiny, like say for example a nice plied yarn that was made of bamboo would be beautiful, kind of play with the light, and when it rippled you would see it more like a satiny, silky kind of feel. Then definitely I would choose to have a plied yarn. Next question, does Chad knit or crochet? He doesn't, but I think it was in 2020 when we were at home and we were all kind of housebound, I did teach him how to knit. So I gave him a set of needles. I don't know what size they were. I'm going to guess somewhere between a 4mm all the way up to maybe a 6mm. So it was kind of like somewhere in there. And some cotton yarn It was a 4-weight yarn, and he knit up a scarf for his niece. So it was about maybe 3 inches wide like this, and about 3 feet long. And it was a gift that he was making her for Christmas or her birthday. I can't remember. But I was teaching him how to knit, and his tension was really good, and he was taking it on well. There weren't many mistakes. Occasionally he would knit through the bottom row loop as well as the live stitch on the needles, but other than that, he did a great job. What is my preferred yarn weight? I switch and change, and depending on what I'm working on as well, I think my yarn weight changes, my choice. So for instance, if I'm knitting a sweater, I love worsted weight for sweaters. I feel that worsted weight gives you a nice bulky enough stitch, but not so huge. So if you want to do color work, you can still do something intricate across your yoke area. I think the project works up nice and quickly, so you feel that there's progress there. And in the end, you want it to be a garment that will shield you from maybe the cold or wind. So you want something a bit thicker. Then if you're talking about a lightweight drapey shawl in crochet, I'm thinking, wow, nothing else in my mind beats either a fingering or a sport weight for a lightweight shawl for the summer in cotton, or if you want to do a woolen one. I love that for a yarn weight to be lighter. I haven't done too many bulky weight shawls, or some scarves I have, like super scarves I've done in bulky weight, but the lightweight stuff has that really intricate feel, especially when you're doing an involved crochet stitch that might be a puff one, or if you're doing something that works back in on itself. When you're talking 5-weight bulky, as opposed to like a sport weight fancy stitch like that, I always gravitate to the attractive stitch work in the lighter weight for that particular type of technique. Have I tried clovers or furls hooks? Yes, I have tried furls, but I haven't tried clover. I know that there's a brand called Tulips, I think, but I'm really happy with the Susan Bates variety of hook. I learned with that, so it does have a natural choice for me in hand because of the style of the hook that I began crocheting with. I have branched out since, and I've learned to change up a couple of techniques and twists with my hand when I'm moving through a stitch using the furls, and I've gotten to a point where I can use both, and from one to the other I kind of change the technique a little bit. So the clovers I haven't tried yet. All right, so this is an interesting one. It talks more about like animals. So a question was posed about whether I like cats as well as I like dogs, because I do have Pixel, our dog, and I absolutely love her. And yes, I do like cats. In my life, our family, when I was growing up in Australia, we always had cats and dogs in our house. So I can relate to either the cat or the dog, and I really like the affection, more so the personality of the animal. And if they're affectionate and they want to bond, then I'm all over that type of animal. So it could be a cat, it could be a dog. Unfortunately, Chad is allergic to cats, so he instantly flares up. His eyes start watering, he starts coughing and sneezing. So unfortunately, when he goes to visit people who have cats, it's okay, like it's at a distance and he doesn't get that sensory issue. But I think if we had it at home and there was a lot of dander and cat hair around him, I think that would be quite uncomfortable for him. So unfortunately we can't have cats in the house. Yeah, I think that catches you up with all of my questions. I'm just going to take a quick look. All right. No, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So what I'm going to do now is ask a question of you to answer in the box below. And you're always also free to answer any of the questions that I answered for yourself, so that we can all get to know who you are as a crafter and maybe how you got involved with your yarn crafts and other hobbies that you might be interested in. So I have a question here. It's yarn related. If you had the choice, so no restrictions whatsoever. It doesn't matter whether you had to travel there, and you could get there. If you had a choice to choose to stay overnight and play with any of the yarn in a warehouse or a store, or that could be a big box store or your local yarn store, or a company that makes yarn, or like a factory that mills the yarn, which one would you choose to spend overnight where you could play with all the yarn that they had on offer? And let me know what that would be, like where it would be, and also why you had chose that. So it's a little bit of fun just to get to know each other's like personal choices a bit more. And there's definitely no yarn shaming here. So if you are choosing a certain yarn, be proud of it. You know, you love that yarn, and everyone else can just go and love their own yarn. So let me know, and don't feel embarrassed to say what kind of yarn it would be and what yarn company or what yarn store. With that, I will catch you up in the next video. I'll see you then. Bye for now.